Hello, my name is Linda. I'm a UK independent Stampin' Up demonstrator, and today I'm working with one of these Sale-a-bration items. Sale-a-bration starts at the beginning of January, so very exciting. This is one choice that you can get. You have to spend £45 or £90, and then you get to choose a free item from a small brochure. And this is one of the £90 items. You get the stamp set and you get the 12x12 paper, which is very, very pretty. All double-sided as well. Some of the other sides, you can see I've done a little bit of cutting there. And I've done some fussy cutting of some strawberries, which we are going to be using today. So I'm going to put these to one side. My plan today is to make 4 cards using the design series paper and the stamps. I'm also using another stamp set with it, and that's the birds and branches and some of the dies for that as well. And they're all going to start the same. So let's just start this one. Using thick Whisper White cardstock, I've cut this. So this was A4 originally. I've cut it at 14.9. I'm going to score it at 10.5 centimetres. And this is going to be our first card base. All of the card bases are going to be exactly the same. And then I have some Pacific Point cardstock, which we're going to layer on the front of the card. And then some of the design series paper, which we're going to layer on top of that. And as I said, all 4 cards are going to start off like this. On one of them, I've cut my DSP going this way. So instead of portrait, I've cut it lengthwise. So my Pacific Point background is 14.4 by 10, and the DSP is 9.5 by 13.9. And let's start putting this one together. I'm actually going to do a little bit of stamping first. I'm using Pacific Point, Night of Navy and Granny Apple Green. And the stamps that I'm using are this one and these 2. As you can see by these, you can fill these, so you can stamp the leaves and then fill them. You can do that with all of these stamps, even with the raspberries. But I'm not actually going to use the outline stamp for this one. I'm just going to use the in one, and I'm going to do Granny Apple Green. I've just got a piece of scrap paper here, and I'm going to stamp that at the top of my paper. Then the outlines of the berries, I don't actually know what they are. Perhaps they're blueberries. And I'm using Night of Navy for this. So these berries do actually line up with this stamp. Okay, I've tried to line this up, but I don't want to put my head in the camera. It's not too bad, not too shabby. And then the inside, I'm going to use Pacific Point. I'm going to try and line these up. The trick to doing this is to line up the small one. Don't worry about the other 2. And then if you line the small one up, you can see where you're going. And then I've chosen one of the sentiments, and I'm going to stamp that across here as well. I'm going to be using Night of Navy. I want it to go over the leaf. There we go. I've then used the Stitch So Sweetly, one of the dies, and I'm actually going to die cut that like so. I've actually made one already. There we go. So you could die cut and then stamp, or if you don't have these dies and you want to do something different, you could just cut a rectangle. So you get the general idea. So I've already done mine, and I'm going to show you how to put this card together now. I've actually got some ribbon for this as well, and this comes from the season Flowers for Every Season. But whatever ribbon you've got, you could even use a piece of cardstock. I'm just going to stick that across the centre of my card, and then I'm just going to stick this to my Pacific Point. And now I've stuck that on, I'm just going to put it around the right way. This is on some dimensionals. I'm just going to stick that over my ribbon and try and get it straight. As I've said before, it's quite tricky when you don't want to get your head in the camera. You don't have to put it on dimensionals, but I decided I would on this occasion. And then all we have to do is stick this to the front of our card. So we've got a nice border around each layer. This paper is so pretty, really, really like it. There we go. You get 2 months for the Sale-a-bration this year. It's January and February. Okay, so there is card number 2. So again, the same deal with the layers. This time I'm using this die from the Stitch So Sweetly, but I really like this one. And we're going to be sticking this to the front. But before we do that, we're going to do a tiny bit of stamping. I'm using Pacific Point. I'm just using the sentiment that I used last on the card number 1, because that is my favourite. I'm going to stamp that in the middle. I'm just going to stick my layers to each other. No ribbon for this one this time, so I can just go straight on. I'm just going to stick this onto the front. So this is a tiny bit bare, and that is because I'm going to add some more pieces to it. So I've done a bit of fussy cutting, and I'm going to stick these at the bottom here. So I'm going to glue my first strawberry. And what I actually did when I did this fussy cutting, I cut some of the designer series paper out, and then I stuck a piece of Whisper White, or a bit of scrap Whisper White, to the back before I started fussy cutting, and that just gives it a little bit more, makes it a bit more sturdy. I'm going to put a couple of dimensionals on the back of this one. And then at the top I've got a leaf and another strawberry and a little tiny flower. I popped this strawberry on dimensionals as well, and I'm just popping that at the top. And there we go, and that's card number 2. This is card 3. So this is the one that I said I've cut at landscape instead of portrait. So again, we're just going to be sticking this all down, but before we do that, we're going to do some stamping. I'm using Granny Apple Green, Garden Green and Real Red. So these are all colours that are in the design series paper. I'm going to start with Garden Green. I'm stamping directly onto my stitch rectangle here, but you could just stamp onto Whisper White paper if you haven't got the stitched rectangles. I'm using the inside stamp with Granny Apple Green. And then I'm going to put some raspberries down the bottom using Real Red. And then I'm going to fill them with the stamp that goes inside. And then I'm using the stalk. I'm actually using Garden Green. And then finishing off with the sentiment in the middle. So because when I stamp when I'm filming, I can't put my head here, so I can't really see what I'm doing. So I did one earlier, and this is what I really wanted it to look like. I wanted these to be crossing a little bit, but you can get the general idea. They both look okay, but it looks better if they crossed over. So I'm going to use this one. I've cut out a piece of Pacific Point, and I've cut this at 10.5 by 7, and that's going to go just behind my stitched rectangle. So if you don't have the stitched rectangle, if you just cut a piece of white cardstock a tiny bit smaller, I'm going to stick this down. And this one is going to go on the front here, but before I stick this all down, I've got some ribbon. So this is the ribbon from the Flowers for Every Season again. I just want to put some across the middle, like so. There we go. And then we're going to put this in the middle. I've just used snail glue again for quickness, as I seem to be running out of light. There we go. And then I'm going to put a bow here. So I've got a little bow here that I'm probably going to put here. I don't know if I might put it around this way. So let's just stick this on first. I made my bow using the fork technique, where you wrap it around your fork to make a bow. If you're not sure how to do that, I might make a quick video on that. It'll be a very quick video. Doesn't take very long. There we go. And then we're going to stick it on this way round this time. I'm hoping I can get these 4 cards in. I don't usually make 4 cards in one film, but I wanted to show how versatile the designer series paper could be. And then I'm going to put my bow, I think I'm going to put it like this at the side. I would maybe at the other side, because then it doesn't cover the raspberries. I think I'm going to put it there. I normally would use a glue dot, but because I'm in my bedroom and my crafting stuff's downstairs, I didn't bring any down with me, so I'm just putting a dimensional there. So there we go, that is card number 3. So card number 4 is slightly more complicated, and so let's see if we can fit that in. So card number 4, a tiny bit more complicated, but still the same measurements. So we've still got your card base, the Pacific points the same, and the designer series paper is the same size. But on this one, what I've done is cut the bottom off, and it's 6 centimetres I've cut off there, and I'm going to turn that. So we have got strawberries at the top and then this really pretty check at the bottom. I'm just going to stick this down. I'm also using the birds and branches with this card. I thought that they went quite well with all the fruit. I've done the stamping already because I knew there was quite a lot of stamping involved. I've stamped one of the birds, I've used Pacific Point. I've also stamped some little feet for him, and I've got a few die cut strawberries and leaves. I'm not sure how many of those I'm using, if any. I've die cut real red scalloped circle, and I think they come from the layering circles, and I've also got a stitched shape circle here in Whisper White. And I've also, using the dies from Birds and Branches, I've die cut this little strip. So this started as about 2 inches, and it's the same width as the paper, which is 9.5 centimetres, and I just run the die along each side of it. So I've got a nice little design that's actually going to just cover up that paper joint. And then I've cut a piece of Whisper White, which is exactly the same length and fits in the gap there. I'm just going to stick all of this down. I'm actually going to do a little bit of inking on the back of my Whisper White circle. I'm just using one of the makeup brush techniques, and I'm just going to use Pacific Point. Because I'm upstairs again, I haven't got some scrap paper, so I'm just using my silicone mat here. So I'm going to start on the silicone mat and then just go gently over. Using the Whisper White, I've cut out one of the branch dies, and this is from the Birds and Branches, and I'm just going to stick this on. I'm just going to cut the excess off. I want my bird to be sitting on the branch, and I'm going to have this on the front of the card, like so. I'm just going to stick this to my real red, and I've got dimensionals on the back of this. I'm going to pop that onto here and pop my little bird on the branch. I have one of the little fussy cut flowers. I'm going to pop that in there as well. And then I'm just going to simply stick this to the card base, and that will be card number 4 complete. There we go, card number 4. And here are all of my 4 cards finished. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and it gave you a few ideas of what you can do with your free items, how you can add them to other stamp sets that you might have and use dies that you might already have as well. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please give me a thumbs up if you did. Thanks for watching. Bye.